Hello and welcome to the podcast, where we are here to strengthen music careers and communities one song at a time. And now here's your host, Jacob Wing. Yay!
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode, and I am absolutely blessed to have Mr. Ben Larson. Thank you so much. He drove down from Phillipsburg this morning, so we are so lucky to have him. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jake.
Of course. And we're going to talk about some music. He came into studio today to record some new songs, so we thought we'd take the opportunity just to get a chat and get that out there. So let's just get right into it. Let's talk about your early life. Where did you grow up, and how did it all happen? Where was the beginning for you?
Ooh. Well, this is good because this is going to tie into one of the songs we're recording today.
Perfect.
My childhood I spent in Vermont, up by the Canadian border, just back in the woods, and I don't know if as far as getting started in music, neither of my parents is musical.
Oh, really?
They forced me to be musical because they always wanted to be.
I see.
And so I was required to take piano lessons, and I hated it.
Do you appreciate it now?
I loved music. I've always loved music. I've loved listening to music. I was a classic rock guy my whole childhood. Beach Boys.
Oh, yes.
That's the only thing I've ever been teased for in my life is my choice of music. Because back when like Nickelback and Eminem first came out, and like Britney Spears and like that era, I was the only one at my social group listening to the Beach Boys.
I'll fight for that one. I will fight you on that one. Yes.
But when I was in 7th grade, my best friend picked up a guitar, and I was like, well, that's cool. And then so I also picked up a guitar, and we kind of learned together. And
that's really cool.
Yeah, and we taught ourselves. And he's still one of the best guitar players I know. And he's who I started recording with just in his bedroom, right?
Wow.
Writing songs together. And then I ended up, when I graduated high school, I moved out to Montana to MSU. And I'd never been to Montana before. It was, at the time, it was the cheapest state college in the country.
Right, yep.
And I was just like, cool, I'll go there. And the guys on the dorm room floor all were like, do you play guitar? Cool. Like, we'll get guitars and learn. And so I taught all my friends who ended up becoming my first band. I taught them all the basics of guitar.
That's so cool.
We just sit around in the evenings and play guitar, and then they got really good. They got way better than me. And picked up other instruments, mandolin, banjo, bass, all that stuff. And because I was like, guys, if we want to be a band, we gotta not have 5 guitars.
Right. Diversify here, guys.
Yeah. And then that's how I picked up singing, is we were just all hanging out in the dorms, and I was the only one who could remember the words. And I wasn't a good singer by any means. I could just remember the words.
Right.
And then I had a shitty sophomore year of college, and I was like, fuck this. And I got a job in, I don't know, am I allowed to cuss?
Oh, go, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, and I got a job in Alaska.
Oh, wow.
And so I went up there for a summer and for a rafting company. And so in the daytime we'd raft, and at nighttime in the summer, it's still daylight, we just sit around the fire and play guitar with a bunch of guys that were all way older than me, right? All in their 40s and 50s. But that's who introduced me to country music, to bluegrass music. And one of the guys is like, yeah, man, you can be in our band. We play anything as long as it's bluegrass. And that's where I just really fell in love with music, was just sitting around the campfire in Alaska.
So cool.
And I got way better because I'm playing with really good musicians, and just gained the confidence. And that's when I started performing, right? Because they're like, let's go down to the bar and we'll play, and just in the corner. And it was just a really positive experience. And so when I came back to MSU, from then on, it was music. I was in architecture school, but music has been my joy for my whole. Since then, it's really been music is what I love to do.
Yeah, it's like the centerpiece, but everything else
fits around it, right? And so my buddies, my college buddies, we all formed a band, the Backwoods Dreamers, and
cool.
And we started,
good name.
We started just traveling around the state, and so we'd bring our bikes and our skis, and we'd go to Lincoln, or we'd go to Big Sky, or wherever we could get a show, and we'd play music, and then we'd camp out and bike and have fun and whatnot, and just music became just our hub, just how we played music together, right? Like it was like the hub of our friendship, but it was like we weren't taking it too seriously. We weren't trying to make it as anything. It was just like it was just the thing that brought us joy, and we're still all great friends. We still all get together and play music. Like I'm the only one who sort of plays on purpose, like
with intention,
professionally in quotes. But we all still love to play together, and like the guitar player just got married last weekend, and we all played at his wedding.
Oh, cool!
It's one of those things where it's like we sometimes don't see each other for 6-7 months at a time, and then we get back together and we're like, wow, we still know how to do this.
And no time is exactly
so cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my start. I got so much more to keep going, but I don't know if you got more questions or we can.
How about how'd you get from there to Phillipsburg? Like, what's the story that links you to Phillipsburg?
So Bozeman changed.
Oh, you say?
Dramatically.
You don't say,
yeah, it's like that's not a new story, but I graduated college and really like there was like a real shift where it's like couldn't find anywhere to live, couldn't afford to be there anymore, and so I sold what I had and bought a one-way ticket to Australia.
Oh wow!
And just my guitar and my backpack and set off on my birthday in 2015, and. I actually skipped my birthday because I flew across the international line on my birthday. Yep. But then I ended up hitchhiking all across Australia and New Zealand for most of a year.
Wow.
And just using my guitar to like meet people, because I'm like, the cool thing with music for me is like, I'm pretty shy, just person to person, like especially with strangers. But you give me a guitar and I'll do anything, right? it's like my shield.
Yeah,
right?
I get.
And so it introduced me to cool people all over. Like I'd just be walking down the road hitchhiking, and somebody would see the guitar and they'd pick me up, and then they'd be like, "Hey, you should come hang out with me and my friends." And I'd go hang out with them for like a month, right? And like to pick up odd jobs. Like I'm a pretty good carpenter, and so it's like I'll build you a chicken coop if I can crash in the spare bedroom and. And just had a great time, and I would kind of alternate. I'd do like 2 weeks like working for somebody, maybe building a deck or whatever, and then I'd do 2 weeks backpacking in the wilderness.
Oh God, that is so amazing!
Hauling my guitar around and just meeting friends and that actually New Zealand led me to Spain, and. This is the funny part. So when I was in Spain, I'm just walking down the road, right, in Barcelona, and I come across one of my old professors from MSU.
No. Wow.
Yeah, and we're like, this is amazing. What are you doing here? And so we have some beers, and she's like, so I don't know what your plan is, but somebody needs a house built in this place called Phillipsburg. And I'd been through once and been like, that's pretty cool. And so she put me in touch with them, and I got a hold of them, and they're like, yeah, we want to build a house. And I made a deal with them to live on their property, and ended up the house fell through. Oh. But I met my now wife the very first day I was there.
You're kidding me.
No. and immediately just fell into that community the same way I was when I was traveling. It was just like, well, this is cool. I'll stay here. And one thing led to another, ended up buying a little piece of property, and then my now wife and I built a house together.
Now that is a story.
Yeah, and so that's how I ended up there, and I've just made some great friends there, and really lucked out. Like when COVID happened, there's not a big music community in Phillipsburg.
Of course, right.
I mean, there's some great musicians. They're just not necessarily performer musicians, but a couple of them, we were just hanging out in the garage and started playing music during lockdown. We're like, well, we got nothing else to do. Let's sit and play music. And then we're like, well, this could be a band. And that is the band I have today. That's
as organic as it ever gets.
It is the most organic thing. Like our bass player was a trumpet player in the Army band for 25 years.
Of course.
He retired from the Army and was like, well, now what do we do? What do I do? And we're like, well, we don't need a trumpet player, but you want to play bass? And so he taught himself bass. And and so like our band just formed organically of the musicians that we had, and it's just become the best thing. And over the last couple of years, it's been like people keep kind of be like, you guys are great, you should keep playing. We're like, okay.
Well, let's talk about that then. So you get these guys together.
Yeah.
You record under Ben Larson, and your first EP I think was under Old Man Ben. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then the group you have is Ben Larson and the old
Grown-ass men.
Grown-ass men.
Grown-ass men.
So talk about those names. How did that come around? How did you refer to yourself as the old man?
The old man Ben actually goes back a ways in that I know it's kind of cliche to say like I have an old soul, but like all of my friends, a lot of them are like 30 years older than me. Like I've naturally just gravitated to just old timers.
The old soul, yeah.
When I was traveling and I like old music, and honestly, all my friends are like, dude, you really like I'm less grouchy than I used to be. I've been actively working on it, but like I've been known to be a grouch my whole life, right? And so people would make fun of me for being just like an old timer, and I was the last person in my whole social group to get a smartphone, which was a year ago this week.
Wow, way to go! Way to hold out.
I held out for a really long time, so I was just like, and I lived without plumbing. I lived in the woods just by myself, right? Like, and so just like. I acted far older than my age. And so that's where the old man Ben came from. But I actually kind of got away from that over the last year and a half because I sort of found that I was unnecessarily grouchy, right? Unnecessarily like just crotchety.
Right, yeah.
Right? And I was just like, I had kind of a coming to Jesus, not like actual Jesus, but of just like you know what? I'll have plenty of time to be old.
Right.
I don't like it was one of those things that it started to be like I was like achy all the time and just
oh wow, affecting you physically, yeah.
Physically, right? Because you start to like personify that character, and I was like, I'm not old. I'm 32 years old. Right. Like, get over yourself. And so over the last year, I've really tried to just not be old and just. And it's made a big difference. And so I actually, the old man Ben was like, that EP was an era of my life.
Gotcha.
And I've really been trying to like I love that era, but it's one of those things that I'm like, damn it, that's a time. And I've actually got a song that it's not ready to record yet called Old Man Ben that's kind of like telling myself, you're not old yet. You have plenty of time to be old.
How cool.
And so just like be young while you can, because you get all these old timers that I hang out with that are like, dude, you're not old.
Oh,
like,
my God.
Live it.
Well, one, I can't wait to hear that song. And just a quick side.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be linked below, so go check out the links. Listen to a song. Spent this entire morning just listening to your first couple albums.
Nice.
And that's a wonderful morning. So honestly, go out, take a listen. Everything's linked below. Go listen to that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about you. Like, you formed a group in a small area.
Yeah.
And you got your band going. You have your personal stuff. What so far, as we're trying to speak to other musicians and other artists kind of in this similar situation, what has been the hardest part for you in that area? You know, starting out, getting things going.
Ooh, mileage.
Yep.
I mean, but that's one of those things that it's like I choose to live here, so I have to accept that.
Yep.
That's something that I don't want to change because I love the open space. So it's just one of those things you have to adapt to. Of like, okay, I have to drive further than most people to get to shows.
Right.
Where I live is a remote area. You gotta drive.
It's an hour, 2 and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours to a show. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like you're going to Billings, it's 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Next month I'm going out to Glasgow. That's 8.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right. Like,
I mean,
it's closer to Seattle than it is to Northeast Montana.
It's just funny. You talk to like somebody from like Britain or anything in London, and they tell them like 8 hours. Like it's 4 hours across the entire island.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they're like, what?
Yeah. You could in 8 hours you could be in Belgium, right? Like,
that's so funny.
And so definitely that. But for me, I love doing so many things. Like, music is my favorite thing, but it's like I love building, I love hiking, I love welding, I love like outdoor sports, and so it's finding the time or making the time because I like to make things on my own property. I've turned my yard into a music venue. I do sculpture. What? Yeah, we'll get to that.
Oh, cool.
And I just like I tear down old buildings and salvage the lumber and
cool.
build things out of it. That's what I built my house out of, was all salvaged material.
I bet it looks amazing.
It's unique for sure. But so for me, choosing music to be like, all right, I need to practice. Like, I love it, but I'm like, but I could be doing this, right? I could be doing that. I could go play softball with all the construction workers, or I could go hiking with my wife, or I could go. My wife's a coach, and it's like I want to go to her volleyball games,
right?
And it's like, okay, well, I guaranteed so I've worked really hard over the last couple of years to be like, make time for music, because every time you do it, you feel good. And it may not make you as much money as, say, doing construction or anything, but in the long run, it always makes me feel better every time I choose it. So that has been the hardest thing, is like choosing different dreams and being like, you know what, I might have to I stopped mountain biking because I can't risk breaking a wrist. Right. And it's like, I'll find another activity that I enjoy. And so, choosing what to spend your time on is my hardest thing every day.
Well, it sounds like you're doing life very well, sir.
I'm trying.
That's pretty impressive. So what about the biggest win so far? I mean, you're obviously doing all this great work. Your songs are amazing. You're playing with this great group. You're traveling. What's been your biggest win to this point?
I've had a lot of wins. I definitely will say that, but the biggest one actually happened a little bit over a month ago. So one of my favorite bands is this band called the Wilder Blue.
Okay.
They're out of Texas, and I've followed them for years. Since each member, it's kind of a super group of various Texas-based musicians. And so I'd followed them individually, and they formed this band in 2019 called the Wilder Blue. And They tour constantly, and so the first time I got to see them was 2021 in a basement in Butte.
Oh, wow.
And there were
intimate.
25 people there, and I was like, how are there only 25 people here? But they've come through Montana a few times, and I gotta, after each show, go up and introduce myself. And after a show in Helena last year, I was like, hey, would you guys be interested in coming to Phillipsburg? If the money was right, we do a summer concert every third Saturday in August. And it's a fundraiser for our local daycare put on by the Rotary. And they said yes. And so, I was like, wait, really? And they're like, yeah, of course, yeah. Here's how much. And so I put them in touch with the Rotary Club. And I was like, hey, band, Rotary, get together. And they said yes. And they drove all the way up from Texas.
Are you kidding me?
To play in Phillipsburg. And we got to open for them, which was just one of those things you're like, this is the best thing, right? This is, not only did we get to put on a great show in front of our friends and family, right? All the locals that we interact with, but then my favorite band gets on stage and puts on a killer show. And everybody's like, this is amazing. Who are these guys? Because they're not really well known up in Montana.
What better way to share than that?
Oh, man. Yeah, and so they put on a great show, and then after the show, they grabbed their guitars and they're like, hey, the bar said if we brought our guitars over, we get free drinks. And you guys want to tag along? And so me and my bandmates tagged along. We went out to the patio behind the Winning Ridge tap room there, and they played a couple songs and they brought out free drinks. And then the lead singer just hands me his guitar. He's like, play us some of your stuff. And we played together with them all night.
Are you kidding me?
Just swapping, passing the guitars around. Their dobro player was playing leads on our stuff, and we've got some video, and it's not the highest audio quality. By the end, everybody was pretty trashed.
Yeah.
Right? But it was just to see your hero musicians, people you look up to sit across from the fire from them and just have them politely listening, they were sitting there listening to the words, and it was just so flattering and gratifying. And it was you can literally just ask your heroes to come play, and they will. And they're great people, and they were nice, and they were just that was a huge win.
That's so cool. There's something about music. I hear this kind of story where you finally get to meet those people that influence you, that give you that fire, that really you gravitate towards as musicians, and you actually get to meet them. There's this moment, and there's just nothing like it.
And they're just
anything else.
It's like a win because they're normal, and you're like, oh, I don't have to be intimidated by
exactly.
you. I know you played on the Grand Ole Opry stage 3 weeks ago, and now you're sitting next to me, and I'm playing your guitar, but at the same time, and so it's you're normal, but it's also I get to be in a club, and it doesn't go beyond me. It's just it's not anything that I can trade for money or fame at that point. It's just I got to do that, and I'm gonna keep that memory right here for the rest of my life.
So cool,
right?
Oh, that's amazing. That is our biggest win. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about going forward. Actually, let's go back real quick. Okay. I want to talk about you mentioned you have a music venue. Let's just talk about that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So have you spent any time in Phillipsburg?
My mother's from there, but I very, very little.
So it's the town, I would say, is wrinkly. right? It's got these deep draws and gullies and stuff. And so when I bought my piece of property, it's in town, but it's like hidden in the middle of town because it's got these steep walls, like gully walls. And it's like I'm only 2 blocks off of Main Street, but I feel like I'm out in the boonies. And with the natural walls, like I built my house up on one side, and then the other side's a natural amphitheater. And so first I was building a shed, and it kind of looked like a music stage, and I needed something to keep all my tools under. And I was like, that kind of works as a stage. And so then we ended up, when my wife and I got married, we used our house as the venue, and we kind of built out the stage as like a performance, right? And so me and my band played, and we had like 150 people there, and it was like, wow. Everybody was like, you guys should do concerts here. This would be awesome. And we all were like, yeah, let's do that. And so just this past summer, I kind of spruced it up a little bit, and we hosted 2 events. We call it the Woodshed.
Cool.
Because it literally is a woodshed.
That fits.
And it's the Larson Woodshed, and you can look it up on Facebook.
We'll have links below. You can take a look at those. Yeah.
And so it holds 100 to 150 people, and we did a songwriters in the round.
Cool.
So I'm I guess now the president of the Phillipsburg Arts Fund.
President, wow.
I'm a president. I've been a member of the Arts Fund for years, and we kind of trade off who's technically in charge. And so this year is my year. So the Phillipsburg Arts Fund hosts it, and they sponsor. They get all the sponsors, and then I go out as I'm traveling around and meet Montana musicians that I like, and I invite them, and then we pay them to come, and we do 4 people at a time, including myself, and we do songwriters in the round. And so we've got a pretty good following for that. And then after that, we did the inaugural Grown Ass Fest, which, so like my band, the Grown Ass Men, we were like, we should just get our friends together and have a jam, right? And so we got Brian Cassay from formerly of Laney Lou and the Bird Dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he's been a good friend for many years.
Is he the one? I'm sorry, I'm completely off subject, but is he the one that's moving away soon? There's one of them, the guitar. I think it's guitar player.
Yeah, Matt.
That's
Yep. Yeah, Matt's moving.
I saw that. I was like, no. But
yeah,
good for him, but still.
Yeah, it's like they're all doing music, and they've all been friends for forever. They're
great musicians.
Their first show was opening for me.
You are kidding me. That is such a small world.
Back in the day, the Manhattan Legion. It was their very first time performing together, and they only had 6 songs, so they played them twice.
Oh my goodness,
it was great. But they've been friends for forever, and so yeah, Brian came and he did his new thing where he does a bunch of looping, and so he plays all the instruments. It's amazing. And so he went first, and then my buddy Lance Handyside out of Jefferson City, he came to my first songwriters in the round, and we became friends. And so I was like, you got to come back and play.
That's so cool.
And then me and my band played, and so then we have a food truck up there that sells food, and it's BYOB, and got some porta potties, and it's just, we got some shade, and you bring a chair and you hang out. It's like community music is right.
That's what life's all about.
It's a few bucks just to cover our costs, but it's like not meant to be bringing a profit, right? The whole lot of music these days is about making as much money as possible. And I was like, I just want people to be able to access music, and I've got a venue and I've got a band, might as well make it happen. And
again, all links below, please. Follow it. Make sure you catch the next one.
Yeah, it'll be next summer. I haven't set the exact date, but it's in July.
Oh, that's so exciting.
And we do it on a Sunday, so it doesn't interfere with other music, right? So we can get other musicians, because a lot of musicians perform Friday,
Saturday, yep.
Yeah, and so we had about 80 people last year. We'll probably be about the same this year. And so it's not too big, but it's not really small, and my drummer, he's a sound guy, so we use our own sound system, and it's just, we've met some great people that way, and so yeah, that's the Woodshed.
That's so great. Well, okay, links below again, and then if we see anything coming through the next year when he starts promoting, we'll pass it along, make sure it's all out there. But
cool, please do.
Let's just move on to your future projects. What do you have coming up? Any releases, shows? What's the big future looking for?
Man, all right, let's.
All right.
Well, I'm recording with Jake here.
Oh, see? Got some music.
And so I'm gonna have a couple songs coming out from that. I have a pile of music that I'm ready to record. And I'm actually my my first project is I've got 3 different studios that I'm doing 2 songs with each.
Smart.
And I want them to all sound different so that I can advertise like, hey, if you want your music to sound like this, go to this guy. If you like it like this, go to this guy.
It's like a Flavors of Montana. Like you
exactly. Right? But it also is like me getting my name out. It's meeting more musicians, more
engineers, and
right? Because that's how you get places.
It is.
Yeah.
Networking, communicating, like that's
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like I bring my business to you and you promote it to here and that introduces me to somebody else. Right. And it's a big circle. And I love that right now there's a Montana music scene that they all look out for each other. It's not competition.
Oh, exactly. We build up, not tear down.
In so many places, music is like they're all competing for certain venues and they're competing to be heard, and it's like, well, no, that's kind of like the woodshed thing. Is like, why not just put them all together?
Exactly.
And our friends become your friends become our fans, and so I'm working on that. And then I just a couple weeks ago did my first cowboy poetry thing, and I'm not a cowboy, never have been, never will be. But I got invited down to Virginia City, and I write like narrative poetry as well, and I got to perform one of my poems and then one of my songs, and I met a whole bunch of cool people at that, and a bunch of old ranchers and whatnot, and they do the cowboy poetry. They're the national gathering in Elko, Nevada in January, and so I'm going to go down to that for 6 days, and they do open mics and whatnot, and so I just figured I would go meet people.
Oh my goodness!
See if I could perform a little bit. And
that's awesome. So my question to you then is the 2024 album release you did in February. Is it The Carpenter and the Poet, or is
yes?
It? Yeah. So are you the poet in that?
I am. I'm
okay,
both.
That makes sense.
That was kind of the idea. Is like carpentry has been. It's what my dad did. It's what I've done my entire life to pay my bills, and I'm okay. It's like music, right? It's like I'm good enough for me,
right? But
I know some great carpenters out there that that I love working with, and I love making things. And I love building things, and I built my house, and I built everything in my whole environment that I built around me is all handmade.
And it's so cool.
And so it's like
there's nothing better in life.
There's 2 sides of me, right? Mm-hmm. There's the get up early and then put on Carhartt and tool belt and work. And then there's the maybe sleep in a little bit, sit around all day and just write things down.
Oh.
Whether it's songs, whether it's poetry, whether it's books, right? I write I write for the newspaper in Phillipsburg.
Oh, cool.
I have a monthly column, Words from the Woodshed.
Oh, that's so cool.
Just my thoughts about the world. And so I do a lot of different things. And so I'm working on my next book right now. That'll come out in the spring. About kind of the building of my house. So I've written 2 books already.
Okay.
The first one was about traveling New Zealand and Australia. Then the second one was the travels after that, so Spain and Mexico and a bunch of other places. And then that book ends when I buy my property.
Right.
And so the next book is going to be basically the building of my house.
Yeah. It's a series. That's so cool.
And the building of my music career at the same time.
Right.
And the building of my relationship with my wife. And so it just kind of all, and that one kind of ends with our wedding. So it's like, it's kind of a perfect, like, that's a chunk.
A segue right into the next one.
Yeah.
And leaves them hanging, little cliffhanger.
Yeah. So if you haven't had the chance to.
Again, links will be below to anything I can find. Links to the books. They're all below if you want to read those, check them out.
I like to do all these things. And that's why earlier I was talking about choosing, right? It's the hardest thing. And but I made a point to, now that my house is done, to focus on music, to see like my wife and I were like, you know what? You may never make it, but why not give it the real try?
That's
right?
that's a real
treat
partner.
it like a job in a, like, you know, I'm not going to quit on this, guaranteed, for 5 years, 10 years. It's just see where it goes. You can always pick up building again. You can always pick up a new thing. If for whatever reason music got burnt out, which I doubt is going to ever happen, because it just keeps getting better every year.
Right. Well, here's to your wife. You know, just
I know. Cheers
the
to
partners that support us and understand that it's part of our soul.
Yeah,
this is for you. So thank you,
Sam.
But that's so fantastic. Again, all the links will be below, and we'll have everything there. Please check everything out. Give it a listen. We will be promoting when he puts his music out, our releases, and all the other studios. Listen to them all, please. And just cannot thank you enough for taking the time to come talk to us, learn about you, and hear everything. Yeah,
love talking,
and of course, I think when he does his release, we're also going to put out a lyric video, so check that out as well. And then do whatever you can to support him. Go see the shows down at the Woodshed and all that great stuff. So again, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate. Great to have you.
Heck yeah, this was good. I'm stoked that you make this. Right?
The Montanans got to be seen. They're doing so many great things. So.
Yeah, there are, and they're not necessarily going to be seen in national platforms.
Exactly.
So
we all support each other.
We're building it ourselves.
Exactly.
Like we always have.
That's the way it's got to be done. Well, perfect. We will see you guys on that next one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.